Moldova is a country that gained its independence with the dissolution of the Soviet Union and is located in the Eastern European region. Throughout its history, the country has experienced numerous occupations and is considered one of the poorest nations in Europe, despite having some of the oldest buildings on the continent. The economy is severely strained, contributing to widespread unhappiness and pessimism among the population. Since the economy in the country is almost ruined, its people are unhappy and pessimistic. While some Moldovan people define themselves as Romanian, others do not like Romania. Some Moldovans even identify as Russians. In terms of religious belief, the majority of the population belongs to the Orthodox group of Christianity. Russian and Romanian are generally spoken in the country. The capital of the country is Chisinau, and the population of the country is around 3 million. Except in the summer months, the country is usually snowy and very cold. Therefore, if you are going to visit Moldova, you are likely to encounter a snowy landscape. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Moldova's economy shifted toward agriculture. Farming remains one of the most common livelihoods here, with fields producing crops like corn and wheat. Yet, despite its fertile land, neither agriculture nor tourism has ever been enough to drive significant national development. For travelers, entering Moldova is relatively straightforward. You won't need extensive paperwork. Often, a return ticket and a hotel reservation are enough to avoid complications. However, the country has occasionally been used as a gateway by those attempting to reach other parts of Europe illegally. If border officials suspect such intentions, you may be detained immediately upon arrival. Once you land at the airport, getting to the city center is simple. You can take a bus or a taxi, but be cautious. Regular taxi drivers often recognize tourists and may charge far above the normal fare. A better option is to use the Yandex Go taxi app, which offers more reasonable rates. Before you set off, it's wise to have a few US dollars with you to exchange for Moldovan leu, as local currency is essential for transport and small purchases. Currently, $1 is worth about 16 Moldovan leu. Public transportation is remarkably cheap. A bus ride to the city center costs around 2 leu. Budget travelers can find accommodation in inexpensive hostels, sometimes even located inside shopping malls. A bed in a 4-person room typically costs around 150 leu per night. If you prefer a hotel over a hostel, keep your expectations modest. Many hotels occupy Soviet-era buildings, with interiors and furnishings that are noticeably dated, offering a glimpse into the country's past, along with a place to rest. If you plan to spend an extended period in Moldova, it's worth getting a local SIM card for your phone. For around 30 Moldovan leu, available at almost any shopping mall, you can purchase a SIM card and meet all your internet needs. Data packages are relatively affordable. For example, you can get 100 gigabytes of internet for roughly 100 Turkish lira. When it comes to withdrawing money, a Visa or MasterCard will work at ATMs across the country. However, if you're concerned about card security or prefer not to rely on machines, it's best to bring some cash with you. As already said, one of the most striking facts about Moldova is that it is considered the poorest country in Europe. This economic reality has had a profound effect on its society. Many young Moldovans see little opportunity for their future at home, prompting them to leave for countries such as Turkey, Russia, Romania, or other parts of Europe in search of work or better prospects, sometimes even through marriage to financially stable partners. As a result, the streets of Chisinau, the capital, are noticeably populated by older residents. For a young traveler expecting a vibrant youth scene, this can be surprising, even disappointing. Moving through the city, you may sense a quiet stillness in the air. People appear weary, worn down by hardship, and often stripped of the joy of daily life. Moldova's story is, in many ways, one of resilience amid struggle, where those who remain continue their lives in the hope of a better tomorrow. It might seem surprising that so many Moldovans choose to move to Romania, given that Romania itself is not considered a wealthy country. However, since joining the European Union, Romania's economy has improved significantly, and today it is in a much stronger position than Moldova. Many young Moldovans work abroad, sending money back home to support their families. In fact, it's estimated that around 40% of Moldova's population now lives outside the country. One factor that makes this possible is that Moldovan passport holders can travel freely across much of Europe without major restrictions. This ease of movement is one of the main reasons so many young people are able to leave in search of better opportunities. For instance, it is well known that many Moldovan women are particularly open to marrying Turkish men. The reality is that poverty in Moldova is severe, and in some areas, living conditions can be described as truly dire. The country's domestic production is minimal, leaving its economy heavily dependent on consumption and tourism. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Moldova has struggled to find its footing, and the economic downturn deepens with each passing year. Despite being part of Europe geographically, Moldova receives very little meaningful support from other European nations. Typically, European countries maintain close economic and political ties, but Moldova is often seen as an outsider due to its low economic appeal and limited influence, which leave it on the margins. When it comes to tourism, Moldova records some of the lowest visitor numbers in all of Europe. Few people around the world are curious about the country, and even fewer feel compelled to visit. It may sound extreme, but one could say that life in Moldova has come to a standstill. Revitalizing the nation would require billions of dollars in investment to make it an attractive European destination. Yet without substantial external support, such a transformation seems almost impossible. As you travel through Moldova, it's not uncommon to come across dozens of abandoned buildings and hotels, silent reminders of a different era. Even many structures still in use appear to be in a state of decay. Walking the streets, you'll notice the familiar imprint of Soviet architecture, much like in other former Soviet republics. Even in the capital, Chisinau, new construction is rare. The buildings seem frozen in time, steeped in history, yet far removed from the modern world. With so little foreign investment, industrial activity is scarce, and factories are almost non-existent. The facades of some buildings have long since lost their paint, leaving them looking more like relics than residences. The streets and roads evoke the atmosphere of an abandoned World War II film set. Apply a black and white filter to the scene, and the effect would be uncanny. In Chisinau's streets, you'll also find many street vendors, their faces etched with the signs of hardship. Most sell second-hand goods or personal items they no longer use, laid out on simple blankets or tables. The expressions of the people, quiet, reserved, often somber, reflect the nation's economic struggles. Low purchasing power makes it difficult for many to buy new products or clothing, which is why markets selling second-hand clothes are found in nearly every corner of Moldova. In a place where economic hardship touches so many lives, it's clear that unhappiness is difficult to escape. The official language of Moldova is Romanian, but if you speak English, you'll have little trouble communicating with people, especially in the cities. When it comes to food, you won't need to spend much. In cafes and small eateries, you can fill your stomach for around $4. The average monthly salary in Moldova is about 3,000 Moldovan lei, roughly 150 euros. Converted to Turkish lira, that's about 2,500. It's hard to imagine making ends meet on such a low income, and locals will readily tell you how challenging it is to get by. Even those in physically demanding jobs, such as construction, often earn as little as $5 a day. Low wages might suggest low prices, but in Moldova, that's not the case. The cost of goods in the markets can feel surprisingly high. Housing is a good example. Renting a modest, livable apartment in Chisinau, the capital, costs about €100 a month. These are far from luxury homes, usually one-bedroom or small two-room apartments. For someone earning just €150, spending two-thirds of their income on rent is staggering. In many capitals around the world, wealth is concentrated at the center. But in Chisinau, more than half of the population is middle class or poor. There is another fascinating aspect of Moldova that many travelers overlook: the autonomous territorial unit of Gagauzia. This is a region of Turkic origin, descended from the Oghuz Turks, and considered close kin by Turks today. The Gagauz people hold a special affection for Turkey, and particularly for former Turkish President Süleyman Demirel, whom they regard almost as a father figure. His political support in the past left a lasting mark on the community. In Gagauzia, you can converse easily in standard Turkish, and you'll find the people exceptionally warm and welcoming, often more so than in other parts of Moldova. The capital of the region is Comrat, and the Moldovan leu is the local currency. If you visit Moldova, it's well worth making the trip to Gagauzia, meeting the people and experiencing their unique hospitality. In summary, my friends, if you're considering settling in Moldova, I can say that a very difficult life awaits you. However, if your plans are purely touristic, the country may well meet your expectations. History enthusiasts, especially those fascinated by the Soviet era, will likely find great satisfaction in the preserved historical character of its cities. But if you're seeking sea, sand, sunshine, and a lively social scene, Moldova is not the place for you. In my view, starting a business there also carries significant risks. The purchasing power of the local population is very low, meaning that in almost any sector, your returns may fall far short of expectations. This brings us to the end of the video. Until next time, goodbye.